Hey guys, it's Todd with Project 9. Welcome to Personal Development Hacks. Today's episode, we've got a special guest. And just remember, we focus on helping you guys turn off the autopilot on life, do what really truly inspires you, and start living your best life. Our special guest for today is Mr. Thomas Castro. Thomas, how are you?
Doing good. Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
Absolutely, man. Absolutely. So, for the viewing audience that doesn't know you or doesn't know kind of what you're all about, why don't you just help us out and let us know?
Absolutely. First of all, thank you, Project 9 guests, for having me in and welcoming me. I am Thomas Castro. I'm a licensed marriage and family therapist in California, but my reach is far beyond California. Right now, we actually are focused on being able to help couples in their relationships. Me and my wife, when I say we, and so we do that through something called Shine Campus. And right now we're putting on a virtual summit, a live virtual summit that we're just really focused on being able to help people. That's the focus really for me, is to shift minds. And I guess it's less of a shift minds and more of give more to minds so they can grow, right? So we don't necessarily need people to shift. Everybody's looking for it. And so we're trying to provide it.
Yeah, that's awesome, man. It's like, for the most part, everyone in life just when they set resolutions or goals or whatever, it's typically one of three categories: health, wealth, or relationships. So
Mhm.
the fact that you're focused on families and husbands and wives and that relationship is super cool, because it's a massively important thing for support for a partner that you've got in life that's there, that you can rely on to talk to and stuff like that. And what is the statistic anymore? It's like at least 50% of marriages end in divorce.
Yeah,
um,
that's just the first round too.
yeah, well, yeah, I'm, as you can see, I'm included in that. But
Mhm.
um, it is a vital part. And I mean, if you had to put your finger on it, what do you say? What would you say is the biggest thing that leads couples on that kind of path to where they're like, okay, this is not working, or they're reaching out for help?
Yeah. So I think people have a misunderstanding about how relationships work. So I'm remarried now, but I have been in divorce, and so I kind of know this myself. We have a misunderstanding about how relationships work, and that is that because we fall in love, that we feel like it should keep coming to us. And we're never really taught. I've never been taught, at least, and I see a lot of people who come into me not ever being taught the idea that actually you have to create love. That's something that you generate. And when we're able to stay in our relationships, it's because we were able to go inside out, meaning I went inside of me first, and then I was able to develop a sense of love, which lowered the anxiety or the hardness of what my partner was experiencing. And then we were able to keep battling through all the hard times. Now, I oversimplified how the process works, but the misunderstanding is that because I fell in love, it should keep happening. And or even if I know that it shouldn't keep happening, I don't know how to make it happen. Right. And so we don't know how to create love in action. We know how to do the feeling part or experience it, but we have a really hard time being able to create love in action and do those things constantly.
Yeah, and that's very well said and very true. And just being single and just going out and stuff like that. Like I think a common misconception is a lot of people, when they're dating or whatever, and it doesn't matter what age, but they'll say it like, I'm looking for the one.
Mhm.
And I think it's the opposite. I think it's like you should be looking for the one that you want to be the one for. And
Mhm.
that speaks to what you're talking about, like starting inside yourself
Mhm.
to be like, I am the best version of me and I have all this to give. And I want to find the person who recognizes that and understands it, so I can continue to evolve my love, myself, my self progress
Mhm.
with someone else, instead of looking for the one
Mhm.
that because what is that? You're looking for someone that's gonna cheerlead you regardless of what you're doing, or they're just like they're at the stage where they're like, well, I'll just put up with all this stuff. It's like, you're right. You know, and you went through it, like looking inside yourself first to be able to say, okay, I'm ready to give all of this to someone else, just regardless. And the other thing is, like you're talking about, like, is continuing love. What do they call it? The 7-year itch, right? Like typically it's like after 7 years, people are like, oh God, like, you know, they're on autopilot in relationship.
Yeah.
And it's the actions that you're taking on a daily, weekly, monthly, yearly basis that you're continuing to try and not just keep love, but grow it. That sound about right?
Yeah, it does. And let's go back and highlight something that you were saying, because I think it's really important. Like, one of the things that happens, I think, frequently is it's less likely that couples come in when they're ready, and it's more likely that one person will come in and is ready to make a change in their relationship, and or that single people come in and they are looking for a relationship. And so let's comment on that idea real quick.
Yeah.
Highlighting what you said about being ready to go inside out is a huge deal, because a lot of times that I'm going to be looking with my lens of who I am on the inside. So if I've solidified that, if I become exactly what I want in my life, it's coming to me. The truth is, like, when I'm dating and doing all the things that say find a relationship, I'm finding all the deficits because that's my lens, that's my lack, that's the things I'm looking at. But as I become who I need to be, I start even attracting a different kind of interaction. So the cool thing is we don't even have to look for somebody. The switchover becomes, how do I become the person that I want to be in relationship and be there before I'm there?
Right.
And so you were saying that, and I just wanted to go back and highlight that scenario as much as possible. Like, for everybody who's not in a relationship, there's an opportunity for you to already be in a relationship before you get in one and do all the things that it looks like. Start practicing now. And then that person, whoever it is that you're looking for, they're coming. They're already there, right?
Right.
So it's really important for us to be able to know that and experience life that way.
Yeah, and it's, you know, I mean, it's a common misperception, and it's partly true, partly not. But like, I kind of look at it as, like, with my own personal self, and this goes beyond any relationships, but just like my personal growth, my business growth, and kind of everything that I'm focused on is, as I've elevated, like, who I am and what I represent and why I do it. Like, you have to look for people less because they just come to you, because it's you know, it's like you said, like, if you're if you're the best version of yourself and you're putting that out there, you attract more people that are drawn to someone that is comfortable, someone that's confident, someone that knows all this stuff about themselves. And all of a sudden you go from one problem, like, I can't find anyone, to the exact opposite problem where it's like, I gotta like make a decision, because it's like, I'm constantly getting bombarded, or, you know, I'm getting people talking to me or stuff like that, which, you know, it's, you want to you want to find someone that's also gone on that journey as well, so you're both approaching it from the best of you and the best of the other person are now joined, and it creates a even better, more fruitful, just overall relationship, because you're both just as raw and as, like, understanding of yourself and of the other as possible.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So I also, just to further on your thought, because that's a great way of looking at it, and a great teaching tool for anyone. Like you said, it doesn't matter if you're in a relationship or not, if one is happy and one's not, or they seek you out individually or together. Regardless of all that, I think one of the biggest downfalls that people in relationships fall into is just a simple lack of communication. Would you agree, disagree?
Yeah. So it's a common perception if you ask a lot of couples, and actually, if you were to look it up, you probably would see that that is the top. And I think the difference when we're successful, so not to knock my field, but my field doesn't have a high success rate with dealing with couples. But I think this is one of the reasons why is because we look at communication as the issue, and communication, it would be like pulling weeds in the yard and thinking that's going to solve your weed problem, right? It doesn't solve the weed problem. Matter of fact, the weeds are going to just grow again. What the real issue, it's usually an underlying scenario. So yes, we can go to the communication. I could teach you how to do I statements, and they might be effective for a week whenever you're in a good mood, but they're not going to be effective for long term. Well, what's the reason for that? The reason is because we gave you how to do things differently, but we didn't teach you how to be different. Right. And so a lot of times people say, like, I can't communicate very well. I'm not communicating very well. Yes, that's true. But the real issue is you're not being who you need to be to make that scenario happen differently. Because otherwise you can't sustain my I statements that I just taught you because you haven't figured out how to be different. And so us understanding and teaching at an essence level is really important, but it's hard for whatever reason the field doesn't have that yet. But so yes, communication is one of the top complaints. People will say we don't communicate very well. Well, I think if we had a love way above agenda, then our communication changes. The results of me loving instead of having an agenda that you do something different, everything changes with that. And where does that come from? That comes from the essence of us. That becomes from who I'm being, right? So yeah, that's actually a sneaky scenario. And I do advertise. Matter of fact, I advertise what people are familiar with. So our summit that we're doing, one of the things we focus on is communication. It's also intimacy, and it's also money. So we understand that that's where everybody sees their problems, but we also understand that that's not where the problems happen, right? So that's an important piece for everybody to understand. And I would love for everybody to have that knowledge. Like, if I have a communication problem, yes, that might be what's showing up. But again, resolving my communication problems, just like pulling weeds, that lasts for all about a week or so. And then they're coming right back up if I don't rototill and get underneath there and create a different kind of environment of soil down there, right? So same thing with being.
Yeah, it's almost like you're saying, like, some of those problems, like the communication or things like that, like that's almost like the symptom, but it's not the actual core problem. Like, it doesn't, it's like in medicine, they give you a pill and it solves the symptom, but it's going to come back because you haven't actually dealt with what's at the core of it. And to your point, like you said, it's your lack of communication. It doesn't stem from you don't talk. It stems from the fact that you haven't done the work inside of yourself to be able to offer true feelings and have like those out in the open. You haven't figured out, like, what it is. Like I'm sure in your experience, a lot of couples, like, yeah, we talk in the morning, and then I go to work or she goes to work, and then we get home and we talk a little bit about, during dinner. And then we talk a little bit if we're watching TV, or I go read a book, or, she has work to do. And then we say we love each other before we go to bed. And okay, but that's not communication. That's talking, but I can see why it's such a relevant or such a high on the list type of thing. Like, yeah, communicate, we don't talk. And that's great that you guys are saying, yeah, we recognize that, but let's go deeper than that and truly figure out, like, why communication has bubbled to the top of what you both are seeing as challenges in your relationship.
And I think whenever we start pursuing a higher version of ourselves in a relationship or in our own lives, everything changes. Right? Because it's not a matter, it's no longer about me thinking, oh, I want to communicate well, but now it's like, I want to serve my partner to the highest possible place that I can do that. That's my own internal mission. What's the outcome of that kind of interaction? If I think with that mind, everything changes. If I think with the mind of like, oh, they're doing this and this is happening, I don't want them to do this, I got to prevent that. or I need to say it this way so they're going to be okay. All those things start shifting things over, and now we're dealing with the wrong kind of ideas. So I have to figure out how to, and this is something that I think is what we work on, is I need to figure out how to pursue the highest version of me so that that's prominent on my mind versus what other people are experiencing doing. They're going to get what they need from me if I'm pursuing me at the highest level possible.
Yeah, that's, I mean, and like to your point, that goes for couples or people even prior to being in a relationship. Is, it's I always equate it to, like, if you're walking up to the Grand Canyon, and you're afraid of falling, which put me in that camp.
Me too.
I've been, but me and the Grand Canyon do not agree. Like, yes, I stay away from the.
I got married on the Grand Canyon, actually.
Oh, well, good. I was not invited, so that's probably a good thing, because I'd have been like 100 yards inland from the precipice and like, yeah, hey, go guys.
Go.
Yeah, exactly. But it's like, as you're walking up, like, that's their single person. That's when you need to be doing the work to put yourself in position for when you get to the edge, because, and you meet someone, because you've already done that work. You already have that mindset. You've already got that, like, I want to serve my partner, permanently ingrained on what you're about and who you are as a partner, as, someone else that you're looking to be in life with. Obviously, second best is like, you get close to the edge, but you haven't fallen yet. It's like, I'm getting close, and I know I need to improve myself, because I really do love, or I want to be with this person, but I know I need to work on stuff. Okay, you're working on it ahead of, like, actually, like, getting married or shortly thereafter or something. And then obviously the worst is, like, you've fallen off of the precipice, and now these problems, that because you didn't do the work ahead of time, now they all bubble to the surface, and now you're not in preventative mode necessarily. And I know it's a bad word, but you're not in preventative. You're in recovery. Like, you gotta figure a way to stop your fall, find your way back up to the top, and then get away from the edge or whatever. Just in your mind and what you're thinking. Yeah.
Yeah, it's so important. I mean, for us to figure out what those beliefs are that are leading us to those spaces, and what those small little definitions are. In baseball, I always tell people the bat's only about this thick. And so where the ball goes off before it's a home run, and before it's a single and maybe you're out, or you just get a base hit and don't help the team very much, it's only a small difference. So it's the same thing with our definitions. Sometimes there's like just a little tweak or a little different understanding, or different way that we say it in our minds for ourselves, that's going to make the difference between a single or a home run, right? And so we need to be constantly studying, like, what are my definitions that create a higher. And this is the cool thing about us as people. If I am able to get to a higher level, it only expands me. I have my In-N-Out cup right here, and if I was to fill it up, then it's time.
But by the way, In-N-Out also expands you, just in a different way.
Yeah. And so for us, like, the cool thing is we are not limited by how much our minds can grow. And so if we're willing to change definitions, it just gives us an opportunity to be more. It will never be too much. And so we always have to look for those opportunities to be able to find that. And our relationships give us an opportunity for that. But it's our relationship with ourselves first that I think is the most important. And really, it's all about a love for ourselves, because me giving myself a relationship is me really loving me and taking care of that, which has become a buzzword and a buzz concept that I think throws the whole thing off. But that's really what it's about. If I care enough about myself, I'm going to give myself the best opportunities in life. And one of the best opportunities in life is to be able to serve in our relationships.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, we are human beings, and going back to when we first came to be, like, even though it was a completely different definition of what a relationship was for. It was like procreation back then, but human beings are not meant to go through life alone.
Mhm.
And unfortunately, a lot of people do or are and stuff like that because they haven't done the work and they keep, it's like, and I'm sure you see it. It's like people are talking about, God, I always run into these toxic relationships. And it's like, but what are you bringing to it that's creating that? Because I don't care who you are, but no one enters into a relationship thinking I'm toxic. I'm going to get into a relationship.
Right.
They're just headlong into it, but because they haven't understood themselves and what they have to offer and being and expanding what they are, it becomes that, and it becomes it because probably both people's lenses are skewed by either past relationships or personal experience or just lack of understanding about like how they work or what it means to be in a true committed lifelong relationship with someone that continues to improve rather than it gets to a stage and it's like I can't love this person anymore, so we're good. There's always room to grow. There's
Yeah.
always room to improve, to figure just different stuff out,
Yeah.
with regards to that. So but Thomas, I know you mentioned you've got that summit coming up, so I will go ahead and put your stuff up here and just kind of walk people through like what it's all about.
Appreciate that. So yeah, so the Shine Campus is actually a membership site for it's basically a gym for mental emotional well-being, right? So we try to strengthen resilience. But when you go to theshinecampus.com, what's going to happen is you're going to be able to click on and register for a free live event that we have going on online every Wednesday at 3:30. And I've brought in 3 speakers every night, so they're 10 minutes each. And they this last Wednesday we started, and it was me actually, and then my wife got to speak, and then I spoke afterwards, and it was juiceful. So I expect this following week to be the same thing. I won't be, or those same people won't be speaking anymore. I actually will be doing a bonus conversation for the rest of the month, and they all kind of go together. Just really building on some of the things that we're talking about actually right now. And so we'll be doing that every Wednesday at 3:30 to 4:30, and then the replay will be available. If you register, I'm able to send you that replay, even if you aren't able to catch it at that time. And that's 3:30 Pacific time. Okay.
Yeah, and obviously all the details will be on the site, so you'll be able to book it and get your time and everything like that. And just personal perspective on it, like that's something that it doesn't matter if you're in a relationship, you're not in a relationship. It's an important step so that if you're not, you're doing that work way ahead of the edge of the Grand Canyon, and you're putting yourself in a position to understand yourself,
Right.
that a little bit better, grow yourself and what you want to give in a relationship, and like just elevate kind of who you are, because then you start to attract it. And if you're already in a relationship, hey, congrats, but there's always room for improvement, and it's a different perspective on things, and someone I know Thomas is, there's no ulterior motive or anything like that. He'll shoot it straight and just let you guys know, like, this is kind of what we're talking about. And we're not, we'll talk about the symptoms, but the core work that you're going to put in is inside of each of you if you're in a relationship, or inside of yourself.
Yeah, you know what, Todd, too? There was somebody who commented on one of the videos, and they said, I know this wasn't about business, but it helped me for my business.
Yep.
And that's important, because I don't just talk about skills. We just went over that right now. I'm talking about principles and essence, and those things don't change in any scenario. I'm also a basketball coach right now at a junior college, and I use the same concepts in different areas, but the principles and the essence stays the same. It doesn't change. So yeah, it's super highly beneficial for everybody looking for something, when you, especially in my conversations that I'll have, in mine is usually the fourth talk. So but it doesn't change. It's staying the same because we're talking about principles and essence.
No, and that's thank you for saying that, because that's a great segue. That with those 3 things, health, wealth, and relationships, that people tend to kind of focus their goals and their ambitions or whatever it is on. the thing that you got to understand is, to Thomas's point, like if you're truly focused on your relationship with your significant other, or you're single, is as you understand more about yourself, and you start to level up your life and have a deeper understanding of who you are and what you have to offer, it's a ripple effect. It just goes through into business. It goes through, like, all of a sudden you go to work and it's like your confidence is higher, and you know what you have to offer, and you know where your talents are, and uncovering those, it's going to elevate your career. And then then you start looking at like developing true wealth, and it's like you start to look out for these things, because ultimately you've got the self-confidence and you have that understanding that of where you want to go. And then also it translates over to your health. It's if you're, it doesn't matter if you're overweight or you just want to stay healthy or get healthy or whatever, it's just going to ripple through to that, because those concepts of better understanding of yourself, and expanding yourself, and just growing as a human being, and being an active participant in your own life, that's what it's all about. And you can't help it. It just happens, where my relationship, oh my God, like this is so much better, and we understand. And I'm back to, every day we're talking about all sorts of stuff, and we're doing things, and we understand where we're coming from. And all I want to do is continue to give to my partner. That's going to translate through to all aspects of your life. And then all of a sudden you're going to turn around, be it a year or two from now, and you're going to be having a great loving relationship that gets better every single day. You're going to be, you're getting healthy or whatever, and you're going to be like, I feel much better because I walk every day, or the spouse and I, we do this every day together just to be active. And you'll start to see your career accelerate, and because opportunities will start to present themselves rather than you having to go out and seek everything out. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So with that said, if you guys are on autopilot, and you want to start doing what truly inspires you and start living your best life, go to project9life.com. It's a complimentary phone call. We'll just spend some time talking about where you're at, what you want, what you've tried in the past, what you're going to try now, and how we can help you. The most it's going to cost you is a half hour of your day. That's going to give you a different perspective on some different things. So just go there and schedule a call, and I'll be happy to talk to you about all that stuff. So, so what would you say, like, your perception, like, as long as you've been doing this, because I know you're licensed as a marriage counselor and stuff like that, but like, if you had to put like just a bird's eye view on it, like what would be your considered success versus not success rate? And then secondly to that is the people that aren't successful, what are the obstacles that they tend to face that derail them?
Yeah. So my success rate, I feel like everybody improves. And depending on where they are at in life, I don't know that the comparison is necessarily fair, but I see everybody improving and getting better and being able to do things differently in their relationship. If they're coming to me in a relationship, their relationship is going to get better for sure. Like I haven't seen anybody get worse, to be honest.
Right.
But a lot of times what happens is individuals are coming into me, and in that case, it's harder to know what's on the other end of that. But I think this is the cool thing, is that a lot of times I see people come in as individuals are able to change around the things that they do so well that it makes the other party interested, at least, right? And so when the other party is interested because they're doing things differently, now we starts propelling us into a different way. And sometimes it just takes that, and the other person doesn't even need to see me or work with me. When things are not going well, or when they are slower, because I think that's usually what happens whenever I'm seeing it. When we're stuck with something, we want to hold on to the beliefs that we've already had. So if I go to one of my coaches who coaches me to do better in business or to be better mental health wise or relationship wise, I'm going to do everything that they tell me to do because I'm seeking them out. Right.
Right.
But I wasn't always built that way. And a lot of people aren't built that way. We want to question the things that don't feel right because it doesn't go with or it doesn't feel comfortable. But that keeps us in the same spot. So I
Right.
see that happening is people will ask questions, and this is kind of how I always know, is this person ready to move or not? They'll ask questions to justify why they can't do the thing instead of trying to figure out how it is that they can do what's being asked of them that's difficult,
Yeah.
right? So if I give you a definition that says something like, let's say one of my definitions is we always think that people need to be doing something different for us to be okay, right? And that needs to be replaced with I need to be doing something different for me to be okay. And then the first thing that might pop in somebody's mind, but what if they do X, Y, and Z, right? That's
Right.
the first thing. And that tells me like, oh, you're not ready to move yet. So we have some work to do there. Because if you're ready to move, you hear that and you make the switch on that statement quick. And now you just operate on it because the best things that will happen to us is we start doing before we start asking questions. The doing gets us to reveal the promise afterwards, right? So if I just switch my definitions and start working based on the switch definitions, then I'll see all the answers that I need, right? But if I start asking the questions, all that's doing is keep me from moving. And so I think that's usually the thing that stops people. But for the most part, what I found, because there's been a lot of referrals, those people are fewer between now that I meet. People aren't just coming in without seeing me. They know how I work and they're already having that confidence factor and they're usually in a space ready to move.
Yeah. Well, and like I've said this before, like on with other guests, but like anytime you approach something new, because you're not happy with where you're at, right? It doesn't matter if you're single or in a relationship, you're seeking help because you're not happy with your status quo, like where you're currently at. And it's human nature. So it happens to every single all the best people out there. It happens to them too. But anytime you seek help and you're looking at like I got to do something new, the first and human reaction is always first fear. Like,
Mm-hmm.
oh my God, like what am I getting into? What if I try this and it doesn't work?
Right.
What if I get into this but my partner doesn't, and they start playing these things through their head, like you said, because they're just starting out on the journey. They haven't actually gone into coaching yet, but they're faced with the decision to improve their lives, improve their relationship, and they're scared. And so they start to pop holes in what if, like it doesn't work, or, what if it don't succeed? What if this, ends up in divorce in 6 months because, it worked for me, but not for her, or vice versa, or whatever. But I always tell people like,
It looks like we lost Todd, but if this is still recording, I'll drop a little nugget for us to live a fulfilling life and for us to be able to um, get to a space where we could feel different. I think that, and this is not something we probably would have got to cover, but just as a little nugget, there's three things that we need to be doing in life. And if you can find your way into doing these things without judgment or without allowing the opinions of other people or where you think you are in life to stop you, you'll be able to change the way that you're experiencing your life. So the three things are being able to create, being able to connect, and being able to contribute. If you could do those three things, and there's lots of places to be able to do those things, but if you can find an area and be really focused on doing those three things, you could change your life around and have a different kind of experience than what you're having. I promise you.
Okay, so a little technical glitch, but we're fine. So anyway, um, so we were talking about, like, the fear of facing something new, and if you get scared and you start punching holes in it, right? And what I always tell people is, don't think about what could potentially go wrong. Put yourself in a mindset of, what if we do this and it works?
Mm-hmm.
And what that's going to mean for, our lives or my life if it's a single person, and how that's going to elevate it. Because the other thing that you can think about is, if you don't try it, or you don't do anything about it, you don't take action, you're putting yourself in a position where you're going right back to the life that you said you weren't happy with. So there's really, like, no alternative. It's like, especially if they've talked to you or seen you or heard you, and there's a true sense that this can help me, this is going to be better for us, then what's the prevention for it? It's like, what would prevent you from taking the step when you've got all the opportunity, and your alternative is you're just going to keep plodding along? And we've all seen it. It only gets worse if you're not actually doing anything, or seeking assistance, if your relationship is in a spot where you're already looking for help.
Yeah. And we could think of it like too, like when I talk to my business coach, they talk about, in money wise, so it's useful to be able to take it to relationships, but they say not taking action on this scenario is actually costing you $100,000, right? Even though you might look at it like, oh, I'm not going to pay $100 for that thing that I'm not going to take action on. Well, that not paying whatever amount of money that it is, or whatever amount of attention, or whatever amount of energy that it is costing you in what you're not gaining too, right?
Right.
So it's the same thing with relationships, conversations. Whatever energy or hardship, or even if it was money or time or attention, whatever it is that it costs you, is not going to be as big as what you're missing out, as far as being able to keep your relationship and sustain that long term, and everything that goes with it emotionally, and the hardship. So yeah, it's as important to know, like, what I'm not going to build, as much as like what I'm going to have to leave if I don't say it differently or think it differently.
Yeah, and it's you're spot on with it. It's like, if you look at it, it's not a payment. It's not like, yeah, I get it. You got to exchange money, but don't look at it as a payment. You're investing in your personal future. You and your either significant other or your future significant other. You're investing yourself to put yourself in a better position.
Right.
And what we talked about earlier, as you make that progress and start to expand yourself and level up your life, it's gonna ripple through to all aspects of your life. So that 100,000 that you might be missing out on, if you did it and you elevated yourself, and you're now attracting not only people but opportunities, it might be 200,000, because there's opportunities that are out there every single day that, if you don't do it, you're not in a position mentally, inside yourself, to be able to accept them, and to actually, like, say, okay, yeah, I recognize this, and it aligns with my core values. I'm thinking positively about this. I'm in a great place, and take advantage of it. And you're going to end up costing yourself, not just initially, but ongoing. So it just starts to add up, and in the end, it's like, you make the investment, and you improve yourself, and you do level up your thinking and the way that you go about things. It's going to pay off in a point to where you're not even going to think about the amount of money, whatever it is, that you paid for it initially, or that you invested initially, because it's paid itself off in spades, right?
Right. And I would say too, like you talked about the cost and the fear scenario. I think the heaviest cost is actually the grief that our body inherently knows that we're going to experience, because we're leaving our former self,
Yeah.
That really is a scary part. Like, if I have to undo all the definitions that's got me to this point in life and kept me alive for all the things that I went through, then that's a scary thing to me, right? But there's a saying that says whatever got me to this point won't get me to that point, right? So I could use my 89 Jeep all the way until 2015, but at that point in time, I'm running the wheels off at that point in time. I got to get me a new Jeep, right? So
Yeah.
it's the same kind of concept with us, is whatever got us to this point, and this might help a little bit with the fear of losing our former selves. Whatever got me to this point won't necessarily get me to the points that mean 20 years down the road I'm in the relationship that I want to be in with myself or anybody else. So I have to re-up on that, and that's, I think that's honestly a cool opportunity. We're in the realms of being. We're the only being that does that, right? Earth doesn't do that. Animals don't do that. We do that though, right? Like, we're able to level up like crazy over and over again, and but it does mean that, yes, we have to lose our former selves, and that is a scary thing, and that does create a fear for us, and it makes it really challenging.
Yeah, and I can see that, because it's like people, their fear, it's real, but it's a little bit misplaced, because neither you or I in our individual businesses are asking anyone to lose their identity, like, of who they are.
Nope.
Right? We're not asking you to not, like, remember all that stuff and what did get you there. What we're talking about is taking what got you here and to little tweaks and stuff like that, grow even more and get even higher. And understand that some of those things that got us to, that initial point, there's a lot of good, but there's some things that are dragging you down and weighing you down.
Yeah.
And it's not that you don't remember them, it's not your identity that you're giving up, it's just you're creating a new, better, more elevated version that you're going to be and portray to everyone. And portray is not even the right word, because you're not acting. It's like
revealing.
It's revealing it. Exactly.
That's what you're talking about right now is a good point, where it's not asking you to become anybody else. It's more reveal who you are.
Right.
And sometimes you don't see that because of all the things that you've been through, and you've had to cover it up and hide it all, And so it's not that you haven't already been who you need to be. You are who you need to be. I want to help you uncover that so you can recognize who you really are. There's some really cool stuff underneath everything that's grown on top and all that you've done to get to this point. We don't need it anymore, though. To get over here, it has to look totally different, but that's already inside of you. And that's another cool thing about all of our process, is it's all about revealing. It's not about go get something from the store. I might help you, show you how to do something that means reveal. But like you said, Todd, I'm not asking you to be anybody different than who you are. I just want you to reveal more of who you are. And it's in there, and it's amazing, right?
Yeah. And that's that moment, like, when you said, like, people that come in and they embrace it and they go after it and they take action on your teachings, my teachings, anything like that, the progress that you start to make, all of a sudden, like, your confidence is higher, your energy levels are higher, you're just, your posture is better. It's just, it kind of affects all of you, that because now you're seeing all of that stuff that you didn't know was in you before, or maybe you knew it, but you didn't know how to access it. And now it's all coming out, and it's a better version of what got you to that point and moving forward. And it's the biggest thing is, I love that you said it. It's like, it's not just like a symptom fix where, like your eye signs and stuff like that, like it could last for a week, but it's a permanent change. Like, it is now who you are, because you've discovered it, and it's still you. It's just a better version of you and a more elevated version of yourself. Right.
Yeah. Well, what happens is you become more conscious of who you are. So right now, a lot of times the reason that we're not in the places that we don't want to be is because we're more conscious of, like, the world around us or the circumstances around us, but we're less conscious about actually who we are. And so we don't operate with it. right? So that's what the flip is like, as you work with us, then we start helping you be more conscious of who you are, you know, and I'm confident in anybody who's doing that kind of work, who understands like, okay, how do I constantly level up people? Well, it's probably because you're not about the situations that are happening, you're about who it is that you have to be. And yeah, so it's a consciousness shift. When I'm worried about what's going on the outside of me, I can't ever be in the place that I need to be. And I promise you, it just doesn't last very long. Right. But if I'm worried about how I'm serving and who I'm being, the feeling is good and constantly good. Like,
Oh yeah.
oh, it's a cool focus to have.
Well, yeah, because you'll find like, you know, what used to like bother you or annoy you or get on, you know, your nerves or whatever, all that outside noise, like when you're confident in who you are, it doesn't matter anymore, because you're looking at it and being like, yeah, just you guys go live your life. I'm going to live my life.
Mine, all right.
And this is who I am. And, you know, the fact that you guys are struggling, or, you know, this used to frustrate me, it's like it all goes away because you realize it's an outside factor that, one, is not directed at you, and two, has no impact on you.
Right.
And so why are you going to spend your time and energy on something that isn't in you, right? Where you can look at it and be like, yeah, let it go, and just, you know, you get on being the best version of yourself. So
right. Absolutely.
yeah. So all right, man. Well, we got a couple minutes left, so why don't you just kind of take a couple minutes, wrap us up here, and then we'll say our goodbyes and get out of here.
Okay. Yeah. So our world is full of scenarios where we're looking outside of us to try to make things better. And there's lots of different things that you could think about. And I mean, that's fine that people do that, but I think it's the most harmful scenario that we can adopt if we're going to operate effectively in our own bodies and in our own lives. Don't jump on the bandwagons that try to push agendas that say that other people need to behave a certain way for me to be okay. Stay focused on it. And it's cool in a society, and it's also cool in our relationships, right? So no matter what it is, the idea is to shift it over and see who you're being. That matters the most, and it's super powerful. I need you to trust it the most. And that's kind of the hard thing, is we don't trust it. If I'm willing to be of service more than I'm trying to get other people to behave a certain way, or wait till people do a certain thing before I do what I have to do, if I'm willing to shift on that idea and say, look, I'm just going to do what I need to do. I'm going to be who I need to be. And I'm going to constantly study that and grow that. If we can be in those places, I promise you, your life will change because of it. And I'm not saying that things won't happen. The earthquakes are going to go on. All the calamity is going to go on. People are going to not be who they need to be, but it will be less in your view, because you'll be so into who you need to be and growing that you give yourself a chance and everybody around you to experience something else. We call the Shine Campus for a reason. I tell people who work with me, the sun shines no matter what. It doesn't care if the earth turns around, if it's raining, if it's flooding. It doesn't care anything about that. It just keeps doing its shine. And I think that that's our responsibility as individuals, to mimic that concept. No matter how people are affected by it, it continues to shine and do what it's here to do. Right. And I want all of us to know that message and do that same thing too.
Yeah, that's awesome. And that's a great way to think of it, is like, you know, that light that is always there. It can be the light in you too. And it's just discovering the awesome human being that you were put on earth to be.
Right.
I saw something that's like, the chances that you and I are exactly who we are is like 1 in like 4.3 trillion or some ridiculous number, you know, but it happened.
You're right.
And it was for a reason. We were all put here to, you know, live our lives.
Do our thing.
And the more you can focus on that, absolutely the better. But there's, you know, just to cap us off here, there's an old adage, like if you find yourself in you know, the wait and see or the planning mode, and you're always like planning or always waiting for something else to happen before you take action, you better get used to planning and waiting for the next 50 years of your life, because if you're not going to make a decision when something feels right, sounds right, and looks right, you're just going to constantly just be in that mode and not actually take action on anything.
Absolutely.
So, well, cool. Well, Thomas, I appreciate your time. Thank you so much for being here. To all of our guests out there, thank you guys for joining, and we will see you guys next episode. But Thomas and I are here for you guys to help out. So you guys have a good day. See ya.